Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the November 18th, Planning Board meeting. Thank you for bearing with us. We had some technical difficulties in the other room. Present tonight, we have Richard Clark, our Vice Chairman, Steve Wetruba, Clerk of the Board, Bill LePage, Member, Russ Giglio, Associate Member is with us. We also have a new member tonight, Guy Horn. Welcome, Guy. A longtime Planning Board member after a brief absence is back. We appreciate seeing you out here. Bill Scanlon, our town planner, and Michelle, acting clerk. First item on the agenda, approval of the minutes from the October 28th, October 19th, and October 14th meetings. What's the pleasure of the board?
Mr. Chairman, I would move that we accept the minutes as recorded for the meeting October 14, 2020.
For which meetings?
October 14, 2020. That's what I'm seeing, approval of minutes of 2014.
We got the 14th, the 28th, and the 19th. You want to take them one at a time?
I think we may need a motion for each of them individually.
All right, let's hit the 14th first. I have a motion to accept the minutes of the October 14th meeting as presented. Do I have a second?
Second.
And a second. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, passes unanimous. For the October 19th meeting?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that we approve the minutes as recorded for the October 19, 2020 meeting.
I have a motion to accept the minutes as recorded for the October 19th, 2020 meeting. Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion on the floor. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, passed. And then for the October 28th meeting.
Mr. Chairman, I would move that we accept the minutes as recorded for the October 28, 2020 meeting.
I have a motion to accept the minutes for the October 28th meeting as presented. Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, unanimous. Can we get two signatures around everybody, please? I got the first set here.
I got this set going here.
There you go, sir.
There's the 14th, Mr. Chairman.
The next item on the agenda is an A&R plan for Paglione Drive. Is the applicant present?
My name is Brian Hill. I'm the professional landscaper. Plan is to owned land. We had So this is the non-conformances on the lot line, but we're not changing that lot line. Exists. Doesn't include the fireplace. So we left enough land. Is now going to be 100-foot frontage and the minimum lot area. There is one further subdivision. We are removing the about 22 acres. The lot line that we've created between 11 and the remaining land is one of the ancient tract lines. The total land is described in several tracts. So the line that we're using for 11A now is actually one of the ancient tract lines. So, I mean, it's not really, there's nothing that really describes it that well. So this plan is the meets and bounds that really puts it on paper and defines it once and for all. The remaining land has a 50-foot piece of land that attaches to the main street. So it's not a landlocked parcel. But it has not been surveyed. The meets and bounds of the remaining land have not been surveyed at this point.
So you said you're using a tract to define the property lines?
Well, the new lot line between 11A and remaining land parcel was actually one of the ancient tract lines. The deed included several tracts.
Okay.
So now it's a new line. We're proposing a new line to separate those, but it just falls on one of the ancient tract lines. So it was already 2 tracts at that point. I don't know if that,
The neighboring land, where do you have the neighbors at?
What's that?
To which side, or areas do you have neighbors at, or adjacent plots?
I don't know if I understand the question. Can you repeat the question?
All the land that you're talking about is owned by the estate, correct?
Yes, all by
Any
Paglione.
adjacent land owned by anybody else?
The adjacent land is not owned by any, I don't see any adjacent land owned by the owner, no. All land owned by Paglione is shown on this plan. Now, 11A is a different owner from 11. 11 and 11A are a different owner, and they both signed the Form A as owner. We don't want to create a parcel and have 2 parcels on 11A. We want it to be a contiguous lot. So we've had them both sign the Form A.
I guess I'm just a little confused about using an old tract to define the limits of the land that's owned. Usually there should be some.
No,
kind of
we're calling this a subdivision. That's a subdivision between the remaining land and 11A. Currently, it's all described in one deed with several parcels. I'm just telling you that line runs down one of the old parcel lines.
Right. Does the board have any questions?
Dan,
Yep.
I have a question.
Sure.
For Paglione Drive itself,
Mhm.
it looks like this is the old line for the right-of-way, and are you showing a new lot line here with a solid line cutting through that existing part of the right-of-way?
Which line, can you list it?
Well, this dotted line, I think, is part of the right-of-way for Paglione Drive.
Are you talking about the dash line?
Yes.
No, the dashed line was an easement that was taken by the 2 lots on the other side of the road by right. They said they were traveling on it and they took the easement. That's an easement that's defined for the benefit of DuPont. For the benefit of Makowick, number 12, Paglione.
So this line,
And number 10 Paglione. Number 10 and number 12 Paglione, They defined an easement around, because you can see how the pavement extends beyond the end of the public road. So an easement was placed by a prior plan for that area.
Okay. So you're not changing?
No, that's an existing easement at the end of Paglione Drive, and it was just to include all the pavement for those two abutters.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
No questions for the board? Everybody's
I'm good.
good? Are there any waivers being requested or anything, Bill? Is everything on the up and up?
Topography. We're not proposing any new house lots,
Yep.
so we didn't want to burden them with the extra cost of topography. But we do have, I do believe, yes, on the locust map, we do have the 3-meter contours. So if you do want to look at the contours, you can look there.
The application's complete?
Yes.
I hear no further questions. What's the board's pleasure? We're looking to accept the plan as an A&R. Right, Bill?
Yes.
Make a motion that we accept the A&R plan as presented for Paglione Drive.
All right, I have a motion to accept this A&R plan as presented. Do I have a second?
Second.
And a second. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. All right. Need a couple signatures now, Bill, or how do we want to do that?
We have the Mylar here, and we have the paper copies, I believe. Now we can start the signature process. Bill, can I have your pen? We'll come up and sign this.
Guess I'll move you up.
Oh, through the magic slide.
Dangerous.
It is different. We have 3? Oops, go this way. Collapse this thing.
Sure to use the lectern or sit up there? Probably. Okay, that's sounds good. Okay.
All right, while we're finishing up those signatures, the next item on the agenda is a public hearing, starting a little bit late. The application for special permit and major site plan approval submitted by DMA Holdings LLC for an adult use cannabis cultivation, manufacturing, and retail establishment at 3537 Chase Avenue. It is 7:21. I'll open the public hearing. Yep, I guess if I have to. You gonna read the whole thing?
Yes.
All right. In accordance with the provisions of Section 315, medical and adult use marijuana establishments, subsection 31506, application requirements. My glasses are fogging up. Special permit and site plan approval required of the Dudley zoning bylaw. The Dudley Planning Board will hold a public hearing on Wednesday, November 18th, 2020 at 7:15 p.m. in the Dudley Municipal Complex, room 321A. Right. 71 West Main Street, Dudley, Mass. 01571, on the application of DMA Holdings LLC to operate a marijuana cultivation, manufacturing, and retail establishment in an existing 1,700 and 1,623 square foot former mill building at 3537 Chase Avenue. The property is owned by Chase Mill Realty LLC, 21 Town Forest Road, Webster, Mass. The site is in Industrial 43 District and the Mill Conversion Overlay District. The property is listed as Assessor's Map 18, Parcel 37. Copies of the plan and application are on file in the Planning Board office, the Town Clerk's office, both of which are located in the Dudley Municipal Complex, 71 West Main Street, Dudley, Mass. 01571. Due to the COVID pandemic, the municipal complex is open to the public on Mondays from noon to 4 p.m. and Tuesdays and Wednesdays from 8 to noon. The Planning Board will receive public input at the public hearing. Any person interested or wishing to be heard on the proposed plan should appear at the time and place designated. If you wish to comment but are unable to attend, please submit written comments to the Planning Board office before 4:30 p.m. on November 17th, 2020. Thank you. All right.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, members of the board, for having us tonight. We did put together a brief presentation just so we could explain to us what we're proposing to bring to this location while we request this special permit. Ultimately, we're asking to utilize 35 and 37 Chase Ave for adult use cultivation, manufacturing, and retail. This property has been zoned by town meeting for this specific purpose. We have entered into a host agreement with the town of Dudley through the Selectmen Board, and at this time we do have provisional licensure through the Cannabis Commission concerning our applications for all three uses. As a brief introduction, the team that we have brought here has ties to the co-CEO up in the local, who's also here. For cultivation company, founded the largest 150,000 retail establishment project. Day-to-day experience. Ultimately, what we're 5,000 square feet. The retail establishment and manufacturing, which would allow us that you can have in Massachusetts. At this point, we are starting with the 7. Bringing here is into the property. Actually, about $22 million would go into that building to bring it up to the code and the needed establishment to make sure that we can have this be a success. Here's just an overview of how the buildings currently lay out with how we project this operation to work. The right-hand side, which is where the current drafters establishment is, would ultimately be where the cultivation would start. And as this progressed, we would move from the cultivation side through the current mill for post-harvest processing, And then back to the manufacturing and processing, which is right behind the retail establishment. I do have floor plans that we'll go over shortly, but ultimately the game plan for this process is to start on the right-hand side of the project, and that plant will ultimately just continue going across in different segments to get to the manufacturing and the processing to either be shipped out to other retail establishments or to be utilized on-site. We did provide a site plan with our packet. At this point, we are using the current conditions of the building. There'll be no external work done. Everything will be done interior. And we have Steve here from BS Engineering who put together the site plan drawing to answer any questions that you may have about that. And we are at this point also having a full survey done of the entire structure by Jarvis Engineering. Once again, there's ultimately three major components of this operation. As I stated earlier, here's a floor plan of how the cultivation would ultimately work. Cultivation is the actual agricultural aspect of this. Those are the bloom rooms, the veg rooms, and the mother rooms. So that's the actual agricultural aspect where we'll be growing the plant. Ultimately, the mill area, the old Ethan Allen building itself would be utilized for some parts of the cultivation, but mainly the post-harvest processing. That would occur after the product has been cut and trimmed. It's then dried and ultimately is put into a state that it can then go towards the ultimate manufacturing aspect, which is the building right behind the retail establishment. Is one of the newer buildings on this. The good thing about this site is that the cultivation area where Drafters is a very modern building. And the other good thing is that the warehouse building behind the retail establishment is a newer building also that Ethan Allen had put on. So those two aspects of the building where the actual grow is happening, where the kitchen and the manufacturing are occurring, will be happening in newer buildings, while the mill itself, the older building, will be used for post-harvest part where we're taking that plant and preparing it for manufacturing use. These are just some pictures that Rhett was able to take from his operations, just to show you ultimately how modern the inside of these buildings are. They're really just closed containers that are built in there to make sure there's no cross-contamination from room to room. It's very important from the CCC's perspective and also for making sure that there's, we have a healthy plant, that all these rooms are ultimately controlled so that if there is an issue in one room, it doesn't contaminate anything else, so you don't lose an entire harvest. So project in starting in the front of the project. Massachusetts law, so the group is actually in Lynn, which would bring them to ultimately start building out ready for cultivation use. Architect and engineer for cannabis operations. Engineer what is necessary manner. That was submitted as part of this. One of the biggest ones is the letter of approval. This is a public meeting, but he's published in the market. Here we sat in this room. It's well regulated by the of the don't get surveilled, pointing towards the doors. We had it to you. would be able to handle most of these arrangements have continued to grow. Stores are individual. So as more and more of these traffic is actually the 3 stop signs, they update the paint for grade these stop signs and road. Issues with the line of sight. There's no shrubbery that would block any of those lines. Vehicle seconds of extra queue. Traffic remembers the old Leicester. That has actually we're going to work with police to make sure that be there. We'll order memo. Engineers who put together. What we're doing here is bring. There'll be several HVAC. We have to make sure that we are. Filtration put into place. Has to be checked to make sure that there's no. It's an older building, so during the evening hours, and they, there's a deal with the actual particle components that's in that area that's going to read put out to you system. Them and say we're ultimately going to pull your points per month. And it went down to less in. That we're going well beyond because we want to be a good. That was one of the. I handle that in the best way possible. That we had in there was a brief one-page energy memo. Ultimately, save as much will be utilized. We have talked to National Grid. There's enough electricity on the premises and across the street to make this work. And ultimately, we also have natural gas running to the location at 2 ends. So we'll be able to use natural gas. And there's a new boiler that just got inspected that's also on the premises for heating purposes. So everything that we need for electrical usage and heating and any other energy source is actually on the facility as of right now. Once again, we've engaged, the big areas that we're at this point, not for just coming here today for asking a special permit, but the next step would also be put our building plans in front of the building inspector and the CCC for an architectural review. So we've used the architect, engineering, and our general contractor, Vantage Builders. Once again, they're the leaders in this market here in Massachusetts. We are making sure we're using Massachusetts companies. And our hope is that as we begin this build-out, those companies will be able to put out bids to local contractors so we can use local tradesmen on this facility. As I said earlier, Joe Velatico grew up in the Webster area. One of the biggest things that when we first started talking about this project was he wanted to bring employment, and he wanted to make sure that the employment opportunities were going to be geared towards Webster and Dudley. And then as we started talking about the build out here, obviously we went and got the big contractors that are used to building out a facility of this size, but we want to utilize, you know, Webster, Dudley, Oxford tradesmen that are able to come in, and we can hire them to make sure that they do this work and get them involved in this project. At this point, we're well into our financing. There's going to be a $22 million construction loan that will go towards going to maintain, look the same way it does side. Obviously involved because ultimately and they're going to be consumed. Special, the COO coming from Colorado, processes, so it's a high education. A strong branding campaign that will drive up the sale the end user. Loan will be utilized, which are the retail for the community. When available. At the end, they're well-paying jobs. Here is including health insurance. Team, they have shown that they you can make sure that's going to be a success. We'll once it's up and running, that the host agreement against DMA is built out, and the culture one. So it's going to this based upon sales taxes or any other fees. Not only do our employees, but so we're hoping that's ultimately the end of the presentation to the town. Occasions. There's a special permit for this in the state of Massachusetts.
We'll open up for public.
Anybody in the audience who has
Mr. Chairman, I would assume have an opportunity for.
Representing question on traffic study. Request. Poll 10, 9, or 8. The 3 polls in a row from the intersection. I'm curious, not why wasn't it getting a street light there? It's very dark. There's going to be a lot of traffic there. There's going to be delivery traffic in and out of there because we have a distribution facility here, not just retail. So I asked this question at the post meeting. I was told that the planning board meeting would be the forum to discuss it, and I'd like to know where we're at. Thank you.
I've got a question for him, actually.
Sir, if you could just, you got a question, Steve?
Yeah. I just got a quick question. You said polls 8, 9, and 10. I went and I checked, and there is a light at the intersection of that little tiny street called Office Hill and Chase. What poll number would that be? Do you happen to know?
I don't.
So is 8, 9, and 10, would that be the 3 polls before that poll?
No, if you're starting at the intersection of Chase Ave and Brandon or Hill Street,
Yeah.
the first pole south is, I believe, pole 10.
Okay, so it goes 10, 9, 8?
Correct.
So
yeah.
poll number 7 is probably where there's currently a light?
Likely, but I believe the numbering starts at Schofield Ave and works northward.
The reason why I'm asking is because if we decide that we think it's a good idea to add another one there, it would be a good idea to probably space them out, so it'd be good.
Yeah, I believe that, I can't say whether it's pole 7, Steve, it's right where that residential house is, right at the end, that screwy 45-degree entrance to the property.
Okay.
Yeah, so, and I'm wondering if that was addressed too, in terms of the traffic study, because, I mean, that whole corner is a mess as it is right now, so. Yeah, I.
That's just because of the corner and people don't pay attention.
Yeah.
It's well lit. When the light goes out, I call and they put it over.
Yeah, I'm referring to the other.
Yep.
After 35, heading towards
Webster, correct.
That
Yep.
dead space between
Need to identify yourself,
Right.
sir.
and the stoplight, right?
Correct, yes.
Sir, you need to identify yourself.
So, sir, do you live on, like, on the corner of that little Office Hill?
Right at the 45 block.
Okay,
Yep, right there on the corner.
all right.
Thank you.
He lives on that bend,
Yeah.
straight ahead.
So to address that, I don't know if the lights were looked at. What I can tell you is that there is a specific section in the traffic study that says that they did look at the line of sights, leaving all 3 driveways. The one that used to be utilized for the parking, the big parking lot, and there's 2 up towards the retail establishment. They said that there was no line of sight issues. What I can tell you is ultimately right now that facility is being utilized for a bar that is open until 1 a.m. This facility is not going to be open until 1 a.m. The cultivation at this point will be open from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. with the approval of the town. It will not be occupied at nighttime. The only vehicles that'll be going through there will be some security vehicles, just to make sure the perimeter of the parking lot is secure. The retail establishment will also be closed by 8 p.m. So ultimately, that traffic usage at nighttime will not be there. None of these stores are up past 8 or 9 o'clock anyways. And for delivery purposes at this point, and when Ethan Allen was there, you had 18-wheelers going in and out of that facility on a daily basis. Delivery of this product occurs in Sprinter vans. They're smaller vehicles. There'll be 18-wheelers that will go on this property while we build it out. But once it's up and running, you're not going to have those 18-wheelers going back there anymore. I know the property from the previous owner was being used for storage. He utilized it for his own personal transportation company, so 18-wheelers were being in and out of that facility on a daily basis. That traffic's going away. What I can also tell you is ultimately how this traffic study occurred was they did the manual counter. They did it on 2 separate days in August, one day during the week and one Saturday. And then they took that result and they actually increased that number by 30% to account for any sort of drop that may have occurred due to COVID. So they increased what was actually on that road at this point. What I can tell you is that they found that from 4:30 to 5:30, that is the busiest time during the week. That's the peak hour. What they expect is that there'd be less than 100 cars that would utilize this facility during that peak hour. During Saturday, the peak hour is from 11 to 12 o'clock. What they realize is that it'd be less than 85 vehicles that would utilize this facility during the peak hour on a Saturday. You're looking at approximately 35 to 80 extra cars that would utilize Chase Avenue on a daily basis, different than what is being used. Be true for the first, as they open up, people go in there, but once you lose that wow factor, it's people that drive. I'm not sure if you've seen any of them, but really, the regulations are in place so that if you drive by this facility, the whole point of it's for you not to know it's there. The people that go there know it's there, but if you drive by and you're just going through Dudley and you don't know the Dudley Webster area, you're going to drive by it, you may not know it's there. Especially the cultivation. There's a cultivation in Webster right behind Price Chopper. There's a large cultivation in Douglas. Those facilities are closed facilities where the whole point of these things is, unless you're going there for a specific purpose, they don't want you there. There's no neon lighting. There's very small signage. But ultimately what this traffic study found was that you're looking at about a 30 to 80 car increase, because what they have found is the vast majority of users that go in there and become customers are people that are utilizing that space during their normal routine.
Mr. Chairman, may I ask a question of the presenter? If you would, sir, just a moment, please. Check my most authoritative source here, and Sunset was at 4:22 this afternoon.
Yes.
And now your traffic study was 4:30 to 5:30.
Yes.
So between 4:30 and 5:30, you're probably looking at something that we're seeing outside right now. Would you have any objection of maybe working with National Grid and seeing if there couldn't be something done in terms of additional or increased lighting?
So this is Dave Lahar. He's the co-CEO.
I'm the co-CEO, and I want to make sure that we address directly our neighbor's question.
Mm-hmm.
If the planning board, in working with the neighbors, feel that more lighting is required, we're happy to work with you. We're happy to defray some of the cost of that lighting, whatever is required. We want our neighbors to have what they need, okay?
I would have to believe that more would be better.
Exactly. So we have no objection whatsoever to going to 8, 9, and 10 and putting lights on it if that's what the planning board feels is the right thing to do, okay?
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, can I ask Michelle a question? Michelle, have they completed the street light program that they were doing? Okay. I didn't know if that was an option. Yeah, so, I mean, I'm just curious, have you ever reached out to anybody in the town about the lighting issue there, or, yeah?
I have not, no. I was told that this forum was going to be available to discuss this.
Oh, okay.
At the host agreement meeting. If I could just address something that was just brought up. I heard before about nobody knows the one in Webster's there. Yeah, nobody knows about it because it abuts a highway and a cemetery in the back of Price Chopper. So that's why nobody knows it's there. This building is totally different, number one. It's got residences of Webster abutting it, basically Dudley. It's a totally different setting than this facility in Webster. Number one. Number two, it's going to have retail distribution and manufacturing, unlike the facility in Webster. He was talking about traffic at Drafters. We're talking two different things. This gentleman addressed it. Drafters' entrance is lit. It's a screwy entrance, but it's lit. This, again, to reinforce, is further north, and by the way, at an entrance which is going to be utilized that he didn't mention because there's going to be delivery vans in and out of it. So you got the retail establishment there. You've got another driveway just north of it that is now going to be utilized with the Sprinter vans. So no, I haven't reached out to anybody. I talked to Steve Warner about this. This was supposed to be the forum to discuss it. And it's a very dark area.
Agreed, and we, like I said, we have absolutely no objection to this. In fact, we would encourage it. If it clears up the safety of the area and it helps our neighbors out, let's go. I mean, we're for it.
Yeah, just a general question about site lighting. I'm not sure exactly how much lighting is out there right now. You're gonna have retail parking at different hours. You're gonna have trucks coming in at different hours. It gets darker earlier at certain points of year. What kind of lighting is planned for the site and around the building?
So we're going to work closely with a security company, because obviously that's going to be the individual who will make sure that the lighting is proper. What we'll do is make sure we follow any bylaws about how much that light goes off, make sure it's onto the property lines itself. The facility itself, the old Ethan Allen building, it'll be lit up, but it's not going to be as light as, there'll probably be some lighting put up towards the retail area. But that's really how we work with the engineers, and we're going to work with the security company to make sure that their cameras are being utilized in the correct way. What I can tell you is, you know, I had spoken to Mr. Needblow previously. He had brought up the issue about the lighting, and I think Dave ultimately said it best, is if the town thinks that that facility needs more lighting and needs to be lit up, we're perfectly fine at doing that. You know, we want to make sure that the individual are happy. Like I said, I mean, traffic is going to be, it's going to be done by 8 o'clock. And I think that's a big key. I know it's dark out right now, but, you know, we're not looking for anything. There's not going to be deliveries late night. It's all going to be compounded in there.
Mr. Chairman, would a project of this size, in scope, would this warrant a photometric study?
There most likely will be a photometric study done of the property itself to meet all bylaws of parking and whatever else in the city, of the town. But what we're talking about is two different things. So we have a site that we're building on, and we have a public street further down where there's possibly public safety issues. So without trying to belabor the point too much, we have a generous offer to help with figuring out where to put streetlights at. Bill, is it possible that we can kind of rope in someone from public safety? Who has the jurisdiction over this? Sounds like
I assume it's the,
as lumens and all that kind of, we can get just be more informed of the subject in general. And then during the planning, during the planning approval process, I think, et cetera, you guys will go through the photometrics to make sure the site's taken care of as far as bylaws are concerned. Neighbors aren't being bothered by lighting, all that kind of good stuff.
100%.
But again, this is more of a, to me, it sounds like it's more of a public safety kind of on the edge. And we appreciate the generous offer, and we'll definitely look into that. Anybody else from public want to step up and make a comment? How do we get hold of the people in the other room?
Well, I assume that they would come to the door if the offer having been made.
Somebody go ask?
Yeah, what's the process?
They do have
them banging?
audio down there, don't they? I mean, they can't hear that the invitation has been extended, right?
And don't get me wrong, I'm fine if there's no more comments. We're going to get out of here in
yeah.
some time, but.
I have a few questions, Mr. Chairman, if I may.
Yeah, I've got some questions.
Mr. Chairman, just to clear up too, looking here, so starting at Brandon Road, I'm not sure if you have the map in front of you, but where it intersects Chase on that side of the road starts at 10, 9, 8 on the poles, the lighting poles. 10 is between Brandon Road and the first driveway. Between the two driveways is another pole, and between the last two are the other poles, so it'd be all in that area.
Okay.
And there is a light at the intersection of Brandon Road and Chase Ave, correct?
No takers, yes, Mr. Chairman. No takers, Bill?
Right.
If I may, Mr. Chairman?
Go from the corner towards the driveway.
Right.
We get
So
any written
my
comments?
point, I guess I was trying to make,
LED in the middle, I think,
right, I think one pole
right in the middle of those.
in the middle of those two existing ones.
I don't think you need one on every one. That'd
Because
be-
I'll tell you that,
No, that would be.
we've got one in front of our house, and when they changed it over to LED, we definitely noticed a difference.
Do we have any written comments from anybody, Bill, that we want to address at this time
yes,
in
we did
public?
get a comment from a Webster resident. This letter is dated November 2nd. It's from Edwin and Carol LaPrade Trust. Says, Dear Dudley, Planning Board members, my wife and I are owners of Unit 1 High Crest Park, Webster, Mass. This property is within 300 feet of the referenced facility. I strongly oppose granting a special permit to use this facility for this purpose due to offensive odor that these facilities emit. This will diminish the quality of life for those nearby and dramatically reduce property values in the vicinity. Sincerely, Edwin LaPrade.
Bill, could you repeat how many feet that was?
He was a resident who was entitled to the public hearing notice because he was within 300 feet of the property line.
Okay. All right, but that's not within 300 feet of the building. That's within 300 feet of the property line,
Yes,
correct? And that
yes.
parcel extends,
Part of this parcel actually is in Webster. So when we did the abutters letters, we had to get a list from the Dudley
okay,
assessor's office and also the Webster assessor's office. And that property hit the Hillcrest condominiums because of the parcel of land that runs on the embankment of the French River on the Webster side.
Roughly 750 feet between the buildings.
Mr. Chairman, I went to that condominium complex today, and I took a look from there, and you can see the smokestack from the Ethan Allen factory building there, and that's actually quite a distance away. I'm not disputing that they're within 300 feet of the property line. Obviously they are because they got a letter, but as far as the actual location to the building, pretty far. A lot farther away than Price Chopper is in reference to the Webster facility. Also, I'd like to point out that directly, I guess, southeast of that property is the Webster sewer treatment plant. So, if we're talking about odor, I just want to point that out.
It sounds like they have a pretty good plan on,
I remember playing
Water
soccer on that
containment.
baseball field, so that smell used to be there.
Oh, and there's also that huge hill. I mean, it's Hill Street. You're really looking, it's a really steep incline drop-off right there, and then it goes right down to the railroad tracks, and then there's the street or long, huge driveway that goes in from Hill Street to the sewer treatment plant. Then the river, which French River smells a lot better now than it used to, I'll give you that. And then you've got this property.
So regardless of the distance that these people are away, we're talking about a building that's the cultivation that's inside of a building being treated by HVAC and filtration. We're not talking about any open cultivation, correct?
No, everything in this facility is done inside. And like I said, we did provide you with I think it was like a 15-page memo from the engineer. Engineer is actually here if you have any specific questions for him, but they're bringing the state-of-the-art technology that they utilize out in Colorado, along with the charcoal filtrations, making sure there's no leakage of air, and making sure that the air as it hits the HVAC system for outside pumping is filtered at that point also.
A two-part question. Could someone describe to us if the process wasn't being filtered, how bad the smell would be? And just second, if you call the engineer up and just have him give a couple comments as far as how the filtration process goes?
He's in the other room. So
He's in the other room?
I'm sure he can hear us if he wants to make his way this way.
Can I ask you a question on a little bit more?
You need to identify yourself, sir.
I would ask him.
If you change them on a regular basis, you'll never smell it.
Excuse me, sir, I think you need to identify yourself, if you would, please.
Hi, I'm Harold Marengo. I live at 40 Chase Ave. I work for Netta, one of the major weed distributors / sales in Massachusetts. I run all their maintenance. If they're going to use a carbon-based filtration system, They change their filtration on a regular basis, you'll never smell it. If they let it lax, you will smell it. If they use a biobed system, it'll even improve it even better, and you probably never smell it. But even with the carbon-based filtration, we use it, we change it every 90 days, and you can't smell it anyway. So you all need to know that one. That's how that one works.
Can we put that on the sewage treatment plant?
I know, I get a good whip.
I get whipped with that all the time. I hate
So,
it.
you want to introduce? But if they do that, you'll have no problem.
Myself?
Yeah.
Hi, everyone. I'm Eric Gath with BLW Engineers, and thank you for that because he kind of did my job for me. We have a multifaceted approach, as Nick already kind of explained. We carefully control the building pressure so that we're not allowing any air to leak out of the building. Marijuana does produce odors, and if you go by a facility that's not being treated, it does smell. We're controlling the building pressure, so we don't allow any leakage out of the building. We treat air inside the building with a secure air system. That helps reduce all of the odors inside the building. And then all air that's exhausted, we treat with carbon filtration, as he explained, works great. It's
You guys use the same stack as MER 13 for free, carbon, okay.
exactly, yep.
It works very well.
Yeah, and then on top of that, we're also employing a technology that they use out west in outdoor grow facilities. The studies that have been done on these outdoor grow facilities that they've been getting complaints, they put fogging nozzles around the perimeter of the outdoor grows, and it actually neutralizes the odors. Where this is an indoor grow, it's much easier to control. We can insert those nozzles at the point of exhaust, and it neutralizes any odors coming out of the building.
What do those nozzles emit?
Essential oils. Agent, it actually some people for processing. This is producing is produced in the flower rooms. In the building flowing from stacks where we don't allow any of the air out of the flower rooms.
Mr. Chairman, I knew that we were going to be talking about potential odor concerns, so I did a little bit of research, and it turns out that, Massachusetts is fairly new to this, but that as far as growing marijuana in America, it's been around for a while, and this is an older article. This goes back to 2014. New York Times article, the headline is "Dead Skunk Stench from Marijuana Farms Outrages Californians." But I want to point out, this is an outdoor cultivation farm, and this was at the beginning of the industry, or earlier on, when these concerns apparently weren't being addressed. And the technology has come a long way as far as how to actually handle odor problems, and especially in a closed cultivation situation like that. The thing I found most interesting was there's a guy who made a ton of money developing the weirdest looking thing that looks like two telescopes you hold up to your nose, which is designed to actually isolate and test the magnitude of an odor, because you might find an odor offensive that somebody else might not be offended by. So they needed some way to quantify this, because there are lawsuits. So, if you live near one of these facilities and they don't maintain it and it starts to stink, you can avail yourself of the legal system and band together as neighbors and sue them.
And
That helps alleviate any of your anxiety about odor.
And I will stress that as the engineer, we always urge the client to sign up for a maintenance program with the manufacturers of the charcoal filtration and the HVAC system to come out periodically every 3 to 6 months and check all the filters, replace all filters.
Mr. Chairman, if I may. While we have the engineer here, perhaps the question might be addressed to you. I note in your floor plan, retail/manufacturing, there's reference to, or indicated here, butane and ethanol. It's my understanding that in some grow locations out in the west primarily, there have been incidents of fires and explosions. I wondered how you might want to address that, because I understand that this is part of your process. I don't want you to give away your proprietary recipe necessarily, but how do you mitigate for that kind of a problem? Have you addressed this with the fire chief, and has that reached the point where he is satisfied going forward?
Ethanol and butane extraction is a very involved process, and we put a lot of time into the engineering of those. There are sensors all over the place in these rooms. There's C1D1 rooms, explosion proof. Everything in the room is explosion proof, all electrical receptacles, fans. There's no computers in the room. You can't even have a cell phone in the room. So essentially, there's no spark in the room. That's NFPA.
You're saying that the spark attributed was the cause of those incidents that have occurred in the past, you're saying?
Typically, yes. So all of the equipment in that room must be explosion proof.
And the employees will be trained such that nothing will ever go at the wrong direction.
So I'd just like to introduce myself, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Rhett Jordan. I'm one of the operators from Native Roots in Colorado. I've been in the industry since 2010 when those explosions began to happen, when the industry first begun. The main like that is because they were doing cans of butane. Standard, we've taken it to a C1D1 chamber. All the air is being flames and oxygen out. The way we've engineered and the way is that existent training procedure with it to make sure what to do if for to make sure that standard when there was no
point, or will be at some point.
It's the same models that we
Do have another. So you have plans.
If anyone over the age of the product. So ultimately what happens, ID, we have things, that would make them well aware over into Rhode Island.
They're also
so there notifying everybody about on the premises whatsoever. On-site usage. It's checked at least twice in the product. Going to be signage up the law.
in this regard, Mr. Chairman. In terms of product, if you will, of fireworks across.
No, what I can tell you is that there And also the
Fall River and Attleboro. You know, I appreciate
The proposal to put one in road in Webster.
that may well be, but I don't a major feel more comfortable with the product.
I happen to know regarding crossing the state line.
But there is a penalty.
if you got prosecuted, federal government, there's a large push for in their state 2 weeks ago. By the that's just because he's so worried about Jersey. To allow for legalization.
Assumption on site.
No. And we, the host agreement, we are training when the vehicle stop. This individual would come in and a drug sort of. It's the state uses the track seed an ounce. Worth Road, once it's open, would track your ID and say implemented by the CCC at the POS system.
I agree with the assessment that won't be coming to your marijuana. Get to take it home, which the point being is that it's going to draw publicity. Town of Dudley, because I think we're talking about a misdemeanor. Quite frankly, I'm from the Connecticut State Police carrying an ounce of pot over the line.
I was surprised, Mr. Wetruba, when I think it was Massachusetts State Police were stopping people for buying fireworks across the line in Quinnebog. You know, I don't know what the individual jurisdictions feel is their priorities, but
a lot of those people were having trunk loads of fireworks.
That may be the case.
If
but
fireworks were as regulated as this industry is regulated, I don't think they'd have to do that.
I will point out that one fact, that the Cannabis Control Commission of Massachusetts, the regulations they put in, they update them on a yearly basis compared to other states that have legalized. Anyone that comes into the state, the first thing they normally say is that the regulations are extremely stringent, and they don't allow even the same type of materials to be utilized on the cultivation side. I mean, there's no pesticides allowed. They have tracking of how much lightage you can use per square foot of grow. So, I mean, they have energy rules in place. The regulations in this state are far more stringent than the vast majority of states out west have allowed it. And ultimately, what is ultimately occurring is it appears that most of the East Coast states that are now going towards legalization are utilizing the Massachusetts model when they're putting their regulations together.
One more question, if I may.
We're jumping around, I got it,
Mhm.
we're jumping around from point to point here. Bill, as far as I know, the chief of police has more information, has been briefed about this a lot more than we have since we started hearing it right now. I'm assuming part of our process of granting the special permit is going to be to have some kind of a written statement from the chief of police?
I do have that. I can read it to you, Dan, if you like.
Yep, please, that would be great. This would be a
Okay.
good time for it.
Dated October 15th, 2020, from Police Chief Stephen Weiner. Mr. Scanlon, on Wednesday, October 7th, I had the occasion to meet with the team from DMA Holdings, including their attorney Nicholas Adamopoulos, system for the proposed on Chase Avenue. Issues which could be Avenue. Please, should you or anyone else
And tell me back to another for a second. Explosions. The
Building is.
The previous owner heads of the entire.
of occupancy or use is there to go for cultivation?
Themselves in the fire system built.
Right,
Cautionary note, if I may. Entering their some sort of a license. And apparently, and they were able to creation and actually call the.
Like the story. We
address, so I just.
particular about our ID different courses. We put all of our staff. If we have any questions, we take the local police and we tell them that
Substitute for vigilance.
yes. Be a Massachusetts driver's license.
It's not the new real.
Okay.
I think the young. Advantage to. In the loop here.
At selectmen meeting. Through a name would match up, but no was being utilized by the photos. That was the best technology that any sort of
Everything. So
the ID check. You have a security pump entry, and you're again when they swipe it through the mesh.
That's part of that system. Enable somebody to buy a half.
it has an API. Trying to double dip into. You have two different check. front door, you also get checked. Catch as many, and we have these are very valuable. Protect the community. So we take it very seriously.
Just a comment, Dan. I've been to and have to do facilities is mind blowing. I have no concerns at all. The security, because
A few questions for Mr. Adamopoulos. I'm going to, I hope I don't sound like I'm picking on you, but I'm going to refer back to some information that came out during the October 1st, 2019 meeting.
Sure.
And during that meeting, a couple of things that were mentioned, and this was, I believe, before the agreement was actually worked out between the town. One of the things that came up were the hours. At that time, it was believed that the hours were going to be 10 a.m. to 7 p.m. I noticed this evening, I believe you said 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. So is 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. pretty much what you've settled on? Is that what we're looking?
8 a.m. to 8 p.m. would definitely be the cultivation, which falls underneath the bylaws that I believe the town has implemented. Those would be the hours of operation. We'd work with the town concerning the retail establishment. The most recent conversations we had was from 9 to 8. But ultimately, that'd be a conversation that we'd have with the chief of police, the town administrator.
Okay,
to make
so
sure that
that's still
what that
being
is.
worked out.
Yes.
Okay.
But the belief is that the cultivation would be open for a 12-hour with employees on it, and then ultimately 8 p.m., that would close down. The dimming schedules go into effect until 8 a.m. in the morning.
Okay. My next question or comment, because I was actually asked this by a citizen here in town. There was a reference about the Drafters Pub that's currently operating there.
Yes.
And there was a question posed to me about why isn't it closed yet? I want to read back to you. I'm going to paraphrase what you said at that meeting. Upon receipt of provisional license, prior to any final license being received, the current bar would be closing.
Yes.
So I want to kind of clear that up, because I know that it's
Give you the
currently
answer
open.
right now. We received our provisional license middle of October from the
Okay.
CCC. The bar will be closed before December 15th of this year.
The bar will be closed before December 15th of this year.
We have taken ownership of the building, and we allowed them to stay there until December 15th of this year, and the bar will close.
Okay, I
My
appreciate
understanding
that.
is
I
that
just
the
wanted-
owner of that bar has already found another establishment to transfer the business to, but that bar is closing as of December 15th of this year.
Okay, I just wanted to thank you
Yeah,
for clarifying
we
that.
just got a provisional license in October, and then that's why we are now here. We were gonna do it step by step, so, December 15th, that's their last day, if not earlier.
The next item might be more for the engineer, or maybe not. At that meeting, they talked about the water usage at that facility. And the number that I actually forgot to write that down. I want to say it was it 20,000 gallons a day?
So I spoke to Rhett today. Ultimately, we believe it's gonna be much closer to 5 to 10,000. We looked into it, so the other ultimate thing that we found out from the previous owner of this facility, Mr. Kistner, was that at some point, I can't believe if it was Life Skills, had been approved to put in 150 beds. This facility would be doing. Mr. Nichols had brought what the anticipated usage is. Much more likely to be usage.
Because that number
talk today about the water figure is far beyond the system would ultimately utilize.
Why can't they use
I can answer that.
Water, as well as the fact that the water has to be treated and has to be run through certain filtrations.
But don't you have to do that to river water? But I mean, you can't just take, you're not using just raw town water, you're treating it somehow, right?
No, but the inputs of the river water unfortunately would allow for all kinds of pesticides, any kinds of, all kinds of things that could end up in the product
I'll
itself.
say this,
Yeah, it's seasonal runoff. and that sort of
they do a random check and you have a byproduct of pesticide on it, they're locking that room. and
So
they're gonna-
unfortunately, to filter the river water, to get it suitable for the plant usage, to be then passing state laws would be
Okay.
almost impossible.
And you guys have explained you guys have already talked to the water department about this kind of water usage? They're saying that this is gonna,
Well, the water superintendent was at that meeting. He's raised no qualms with it.
okay,
He was the one who ultimately, from what Mr. Kistner had informed me, was the one that had been working with that life skills about the 150 beds. So he said the water usage is there for a facility, especially now that we are drastically reducing the number to a more reasonable number than what had been projected at that time frame.
okay. I got one more for you.
Yep.
The original building, the original stone Ethan Allen building,
Yes.
it's multiple floors. I'm noticing you're only using, looks like, the second floor?
Well, Rec can go to this, but ultimately we're using the first and second floor of that the second floor will be used for the post-harvest. First floor will be utilized for offices and storage and throughways. What we actually came to an agreement with when we were meeting with the selectmen is, as I mentioned before, is Rec has a strong push towards educating the employees about all the procedures and how to handle their different jobs because, obviously you have cultivators who are handling a bud room compared to someone that's handling the trim. Those third and fourth floors at the initiation of this will be utilized for those educational purposes towards the employees. So everything will be done on site. If we then find other usage to expand the cultivation or the post-harvest, we do have those floors available to us.
And you're gonna have to renovate those floors also, right? Because you talked about this building's gonna be airtight.
But yeah, I mean, they're putting $22 million into that building.
Yeah, it'll all be renovated and climate controlled throughout those floors as well.
Okay, and just so I'm clear, is it a state law that would prohibit any other businesses from operating in there?
Unfortunately, it is, yeah. It's a
Okay.
licensed premise from the state. You're not allowed to have multiple occupants with multiple businesses.
Okay. All right, thank you. Mr.
Just
Chairman.
a couple of final points, I think. We did receive a communication from the town engineer. I don't know whether you gentlemen are privy to that yet or not.
I did, I saw it.
One of the points that he makes is apparently you were planning on something like 91 parking spaces, as I understood it.
So there's 91 parking spots currently striped on the property.
I believe he takes issue with that and you're going to come up with a number that's going to be something less than that. I don't know how, you may need to, I don't think
Steve
you've had
looked at
a
it.
whole lot of
There-
time to look into that yet, but it is an issue that's on the table,
There is.
obviously.
So currently there's 15 parking spots up near the retail that'd be used primarily for the retail establishment, with 76 parking spots down at the old Ethan Allen parking where the drafters unit currently is. Those are striped parking spots. They may not be all conforming at this point, so we're going to issue that, but there's 91 parking spots currently striped on that premises with the belief under the fact that we'll have about 100 employees at the initiation of this. Your bylaw asks for 0.6 parking spots per, so that would give us the 91. There's actually more striped parking spots. 91 is the 0.6 conversion. If you take out the 15, we still have enough spots available for each shift
So
on the
you
property.
are aware of his finding.
I saw it, yep, and like I said, Steve, our engineer, also went through it. There's also an abundance amount of other area in that premises that could be striped for additional parking if need be, but any conformity issues will be handled prior to operation.
And there were other issues that he identified in that letter.
So I know there was topography.
There were several. I
Jarvis
forget the exact
Engineering is doing
number,
a
but
full.
Again, I realize that you've had only a short time perhaps to even, to take a look at that, so at some
Yes.
point, I am assuming you'll have a chance to
100%.
take a look at those individually and address those.
So what we're doing is ultimately Jarvis Engineering has been retained to do a full survey of not just that premises, but also, the adjoining land that is part of this.
If I may, you said the magic word, adjoining land. It's come to my attention that there's, what adjoins the property is less than pristine. There may be some issues with in terms of brush, trash, litter, things of that sort. Is you, any possibility you might be able to do something about mitigating that issue?
That's what the,
If you're
We'll be
gonna be
doing a
down
full-
there,
we'll be doing a
repainting the
full
parking lot,
property
maybe a
cleanup
rake
on
would be in
both
one
sites
hand and a
around.
brush
the
in the
answer
other.
is yes.
Yes,
The answer is
100%
definitely
cleaning up
yes.
the entire property.
If the town,
Immediately after we put the streetlights up, okay?
Yeah, well, you'll see it better.
if the town comes with an issue, our mentality is if the town comes to us with a question or an issue, we want to address it and work with the town to make sure that there's adequate means done to it. We're not here just to open up a retail marijuana or a cultivation and say, thank you very much for your special permit.
Yeah.
You're not gonna hear from us again. Like I said, Joe, Jay, Malcolm, they grew up here. They wanna be good neighbors. They wanna work here. Dudley drew them here because of their connection to the area. So we're not here not to give back to the town, make sure that we're good neighbors.
And just to give an example, in Colorado, we have a community impact plan. We go 3 times a year to different places throughout our community, bring our entire staff, do garbage pickups, do cleanups, do food drives. We're very community oriented. We're going to be working with the community, and a lot of the community is going to be working with us. So we want to make sure everyone understands that is what we're coming to do, is really clean up the neighborhood, clean up this property, make it look nicer, really create something special for the community.
That will be appreciated, thank you.
I'd like to mention, I actually visited that site twice in the past 2 days. First, I visited it 2 days ago, and then I read that letter about the trash.
Mhm.
And so I went back again to look for it because I couldn't find it. So my theory is that I think that property has been actually cleaned up since that
Oh.
site visit where that stuff was seen. Because there was a mention about it being in close proximity to the river and the potential for it, being a pollutant and things like that. I didn't see anything like that down there.
Even better.
Well, even better, and obviously they have a plan to address should that problem reoccur. Thank you.
Cleanliness is godliness in our business, from inside and the outside, to be completely honest with you.
Okay?
Through the chair, you're currently proposing that you're going to be using Dudley Town water for your operations. Do you guys have a contingency plan or for at some point you cannot use Dudley Town water for your operations, or the town of Dudley cannot supply you with enough water? What would your contingency plan be?
There is definitely services and contingency plans for trucking in water if we need to, or bringing in other water. But right now, the main source would be Dudley, there's no question. There definitely is companies and other ways of going around it. And we have those contingencies worked in just in case for any reason a main would break or something would happen, because we need to continue to operate, working through that process if a main freezes or something happens. For a long-term solution, we'd have to address it. We'd have to look deeper into it and really kind of resolve what could be the solution. But as of right now, when we had the water board there, they had no reason to say that they would be cutting it, they'd have any issues with the water usage.
Is the plan still to recycle as much water as possible from?
That's correct. We
Bottle.
definitely will be using reclamation technology to recycle as much as we can. We will definitely be utilizing as little waste usage as possible, so we really try to minimize the amount of waste that we have coming out of the facility entirely. We're a very green forward company. The way we build, the way we engineer is designed to be as efficient as physically possible for these operations. So it's very important to us to have the littlest footprint as possible.
So with 10,000 gallons of water coming in, you're not expecting a large discharge?
Not a large discharge. Nope, the plants absorb the plants and they perspire it. So I would say maybe a 5% discharge at most.
If I may, what is your plan for solid waste? I mean, any manufacturing process, any process, there is something that's going to be left.
There's a state mandate for how to dispose of waste.
Regulations mandate that, so there's certain companies that'll come and pick up the waste. It has to go through a special process. Those companies.
So it would not be staying locally or.
Grind it, you mix it with other dirt, you make it completely unrecognizable, and then it gets picked up and shipped out.
Okay.
Through third party
And
certified
that's
by the CCC.
yeah, third party certified by there's a waste plan, a waste log, everything is documented. It's very stringent.
Thank you.
very, very regulated industry.
It's
Like
extreme.
mind
I just
blowing.
didn't know whether you perhaps would be using the Dudley recycling facility in any way, shape, or manner, or not.
So CCC maintenance, so they just don't want any sort of product, even if it's just waste, getting out into the
Yeah, into the
general
community.
circulation. So it's all mandated by them. They control it. Everything's documented. Once again, that seeded track, they're well aware of everything that's going to be on there, from what you're selling to even what you're throwing away.
All right, Bill, we don't have any more questions from residents. I think the planning board's run out of steam as far as questions concerned. What reports are we expecting from the rest of the town as far as to help us with this process?
Well, to Richard's point, I think we would like a response to Graves Engineering letter that just came in today. So I think we'd like the applicant's engineer to respond to those comments and address them as appropriate. I think it would be worthwhile to get comment letters from the fire chief and from the water and sewer superintendent. As we've discussed tonight, there are some issues that we'd like assurances about. I can follow up on the lighting issue with the highway department to make sure we address that issue. So I'm not sure. We talked a little bit about odor. It sounded like the board was satisfied with odor mitigation plan. That would be worthwhile, but I wanted to, I could follow up and find somebody to review that odor plan. We've talked a little bit about the French River. I know that the town has had a couple of plans prepared to try to utilize that as a natural resource for the residents of the town by putting in kayak and canoe launches and hiking along the river, that sort of thing. I was hoping that the applicant would be willing to sort of advance some of those plans, although it's not required. I think it would be a nice benefit to the town as part of this project to look at how those plans affect that property and see if there's anything they can do to bring those about. I've also noticed that the property's in the floodplain of the French River. I mentioned that to Mr. Adamopoulos, and he thought that the property had already been flood-proofed. But I'd like to see the floodplain shown on the site plan, and then it's up to the building commissioner to make sure that the property is in compliance with the floodplain standards of the state building code. So those are, I guess, some of the issues that I think we can look at and carry forward to the next continuation of this hearing.
I just interject. I just don't know if there's any possibility of potentially having a vote on this tonight with conditions on the vote for us to come back to answers with those. The only reason I'm asking that is that the goal here is, with the special permit, we're then able to move forward with potentially beginning the architectural plans to get to the state so that this building process can happen in the beginning of the year. We'd be perfectly, if the board was willing to vote and allow the site plan with those conditions on, that we would come back at some point with all those answers, and if we fail to do that, the special permit would be rescinded. It's just that for us to be able to move forward to hit the benchmarks that we have so that this is operational in 2021 and 2022, a delay in the vote tonight would be detrimental to those, and including any sort of severe financial impact on the this entire program also. So I'm not sure if there's a mechanism in place where the board may be able to take a vote on allowing the special permit with conditions that we address all these concerns adequately before any sort of occupancy or any sort of review happens. We would definitely come back well before the project's even near being completed. It's just that we weren't able to move forward with any sort of build out or going back to the CCC without this special permit being allowed. The investors are well aware that,
So we're meeting again on December 9th, and that would be a hardship for you, the 3 weeks?
From the conversations I had, it would potentially be a severe hardship for what the investment that we're trying to potentially put in. We can get you answers for everything before this progresses along. I mean, you can, if you want to put conditions on the special permit that we address these, we are 100% willing to do that.
Do you feel then that you're confident that you'll be able to address the issues that have been noted this evening by that December 9th?
Correct?
Good evening. In Webster, Massachusetts. Mr. Walsh's last understands with Massachusetts changing anything on redo anything, and that we're in to Ethan Allen, the building, the far right side, all the regulations back.
For the loading docks at that
Wetlands in that also had to provide. So we've been through the person that came in and then redid it.
Substantially?
Applied to the Conservation Commission.
Aware of, or is this something that
the general condition? He says that we're not this thing. Exterior
In the paved area.
at, I believe, the area perhaps for a one.
No, there,
So there is an additional.
this is as it sits.
there's a substantial investment work plan on the so we're not stormwater retention is concerned.
you don't have to.
With the stormwater.
Did Mr.
River, right?
Site visit. I'm just going to go out there. His comments got half.
The existing outside condition.
Most of the storm control into larger cities, it doesn't even into the sewer systems. So usually you get into a lot of waters percolate back to the site. And not touching them all. I don't know if we hear what Jeff had.
Comment, and
It's just that the work is being done.
As in, you know, the existing, as it is, there's no whatsoever. The entire, what we need necessary for the
Conservation does not have,
we're not doing anything outside.
As well, didn't we?
they actually, site plan, anything in the exterior of this special permit process, what fully through.
If I may, just the mechanics of it, to be honest with you, but I simply, in regards to some of, obviously, in this project, they seem to be genuinely committed to being good neighbors. I have some level of confidence that they will follow through and address the issues that have been raised, and hopefully satisfactorily so. And if it is proper and in keeping with the board's wishes, I would submit that we go ahead and approve this special permit at this meeting, conditional on their completing and addressing some of the issues that have been enumerated just a few minutes ago.
I'll come back to this meeting myself and address all those issues. I
I'm
promise.
sorry?
I'll come back to this meeting and address all those issues, I promise.
Okay, and that next meeting would be on the 9th, and you can give us an update in terms of where we are with that.
I'll be back.
Again, my preference would be that the product was Legos as opposed to cannabis, but that doesn't sound like it's going to change.
If the smell of burning plastic will probably be worse.
I agree.
That's probably true.
I didn't close any kind of public
Oh, sorry.
comments from the public at all. I believe we have another question. Did I see your hand?
Yeah, just real quickly, it kind of goes to the streetlight issue and the safety and the impervious nature. Correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't the chief of police have a request for a sidewalk connecting both of those parking areas?
So we are utilizing the up top part for retail only. There'll be no employee parking will be at the parking lot, the bottom part of the facility. So there'll be no foot traffic between the bottom parking lot and the retail facility at this point. There's 15 spots up there. Based upon what we're transpiring for usage, those spots can be utilized to hold the traffic. The vast majority of visits into a retail establishment are between 3 to 5 minutes. You know, this isn't CVS where someone's going to walk around. The whole point of putting in an express lane, pre-order your items counter, once again, would handle moving up and down anyway, for liability purposes.
or concerned by.
If we utilize the retail.
Okay, so that comment.
Demonstrated him that there in the parking at the top.
Obviously cameras and everything. Where
So we are working with the. We have to potentially.
I ask that because just out of curiosity.
Fence right there.
Yes,
and
so determine how they would like to. There's a white little. Put a fence there with a gate. Because we want to ultimately. We don't. Or during the day. Use a cell phone or anything. So. Up top at the manufacturing area. It's going to be utilized. Come back here at that point, but beyond.
I would parking lots if and they finally found, you know. But they might come back. You might come back and tell us.
30 Worcester Road. Lots and stuff. And there'll be a badge. As of spring, you won't be able. And you definitely have badges on this. Won't have the same credentials. I mean, that's just the internal security, you know, the plan. Used for its employees, that facility utilized for the retail.
On the front of the building there that are going
We'll see it now, and it'll, you know, containing those.
Because the Webster facility, no windows, they could be built.
See the application. These two.
We have done. Decision to close the hearing.
Work through, but Bill.
Don't have closure on a lot of conditions in the decision and such that we've brought up tonight or addressed.
If I could put. Are we missing anything big picture?
And have a vote.
All right. Russ? $8:55, closing the public hearing and accepting a motion from the board.
I'll make a motion to approve the special permit with conditions. How are we gonna go through the conditions?
Did you write down everything that Bill said?
Well, I think that we want to word it somehow so we're leaving ourselves open to simply discuss the issues that that have been brought up at this time.
100%. So if Bill wants to get me, and I'll contact you, or the secretary to get me a list of the items. I'll address those and come back on the 9th. With likely being one of the engineers, so we can address those. If there's some items that at that point we were unable to just gather because of an issue, I would come back at the following meeting. But ultimately, with the special permit, we would just be allowed to move forward. But we would address all of your questions to a point that you're satisfied before this became operational whatsoever.
And Bill, for my benefit as well as for the board, we grant special permission, we grant this special permit, and then the plans get refined. We have a review of those plans before.
Yes, I would, be able to draft the decision for the next meeting on December 9th, so that you could review the conditions, as I've heard them tonight, and then make sure we've covered everything that you thought was important. Then you could vote to sign that decision, or, make whatever changes you thought would be important. And then as Nick has volunteered, he would have all of the outstanding items that Graves and others have asked for fully addressed.
Second the motion.
I don't think we have a full motion yet. We have to try to find a way to word this. Is it, Guy?
Does granting a special permit tonight with the orders of condition to be determined, does that still work for you, or do we have to have everything?
Would, so if that special, if it allowed it, it would start that, was it the 20-day period for any objection? That, if we can get that clock started, that's ultimately what we need, so that at some point we'd be able to potentially file the special permit with the conditions on it. By the time we're able to file this, I'd probably be before you again. That at least start that clock so that we can give our investors and the architects and everything finality of that this is moving forward with the potential date of when ground can break for maybe some internal demolition, and working towards getting those blueprints finalized so that we can work with Bill and the town building inspector, as well as the CCC for our architectural review.
So just, as you know, once the decision is signed, it's filed with the town clerk, and there is a 20-day appeal period before the decision is finalized. If someone were to appeal it, then it would sort of suspend the approval until that appeal is fully worked out. So.
But we would be signing the approval tonight without the order, without the conditions, or without further discussion of the conditions, would we? Or is that the idea?
Well, I think.
Then the conditions be put onto the decision as part of the special permit that just says that they have to be addressed prior to being occupancy.
Sign it at the next meeting.
You could review the conditions.
And then we would.
Right?
That would work for us, because that way we on this special permit that got approved, we're going to address those on the 9th. But that would also get us towards, once again, being able to utilize that beginning of January timeframe for getting this project going. Because once again, we have stringent guidelines that we're trying to hit so that we can get operational on the retail and get the cultivation going, both for business purposes, and also we made promises to the selectmen that this would be operational sometime in 2021.
Okay. Yes, so my challenge to the board is someone make a motion that encompasses all of this.
I'm backing
Thank
off.
goodness I can't make a motion, guys, so.
I'm not gonna be able to word that correctly, so.
I don't know how
Richard.
anybody's going to word that correctly. We need a real wordsmith here. I guess that, Mr. Chairman, I would like to make a motion that we approve the special permit pending resolution of the issues that have been enumerated here at great length, and conditional on Mr. Adamopoulos, is it?
Yes.
Coming back to us at our next meeting for an update in terms of the status of the conditions that have been mentioned in the meeting, or will be listed by Mr. Scanlon at a later date.
Yes.
That's pretty wordy.
Michelle's confused, so I think that's I think it's worded properly.
It's on tape.
Don't ask me to repeat.
Can you repeat that?
It's on YouTube.
All right, so we have a motion
Second?
and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right.
Yeah, like Richard said, I wish this was a Lego place and not cannabis.
We do
But
thank you very
if the
much.
special
Thank-
permit is,
Chairman?
Yes.
Was that a unanimous vote?
That was a unanimous vote?
I just wanted to hear you say it.
Fun fact about the Legos, they're made out of hemp nowadays. I'm not kidding, it's real. It's a real thing.
Wow, there's synergy there. You guys, that's the next product line here.
But honestly,
You're
thank you
missing
for
that
having us
whole
today.
market in terms of toddlers.
Edible Legos.
Edible Lego. There we go.
Thank you for voting.
Thank you, guys.
That's all to you guys.
Yeah, 9 o'clock now. I don't know whether we're gonna.
Thank you again.
I think that was a good decision. I think it's good for the town.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Rather know, doing something with that old mill.
Right.
Plus,
Thank you for coming.
All right. Our public hearing being closed and a decision have been rendered, we are now moving on to standard business. Bill, we still gonna talk about standard business?
Yes.
You wanna jump through those or
Sure, I can
go through those?
go through them quickly. On Pierpont Estates, Tony Sakara came into the office and I gave him the town bylaw and checklist for street acceptance.
Yep.
He is very intent on filing for getting town meeting to accept those streets at the annual town meeting. I told him that the deadline is January, so he thought he would be able to meet that deadline to get his as-built plans and all the deed information that we require. I do not have any new information on Rocky Hill Estates or Piastra Road. Country View Estates or Eisenhower Drive, I believe I updated you the last meeting. We are hoping to split the cost of the repair to the pumps in the sewer pump station with the developer. We are working on a written agreement for both parties to sign, so that's in the works at the moment. Once and if he agrees to split the cost, then we would go forward with that repair. On Tobin Farm Estates, the highway superintendent, before he retired, sent me a letter saying he's satisfied with the improvements at Tobin Farm. The developer came into the office last week. We talked about the other pieces of information that we need in order to get this on the warrant for town meeting acceptance. So he's working on that, and I expect that will be successful.
That's something that we'll have to review before it
Yes.
goes to town meeting, right?
Yes. On Lyons Estates, we had another site visit report from Graves Engineering, which you received prior to the meeting. It seems to be moving along very well. When I spoke with Tom Ravine, he indicated that he was hoping to get the base course of pavement done before the snow flies this year. That was about a week or two ago, so I don't know if he's done anything since then, but his thought was if he could get that in, he might be able to get some lot releases so that he could start building some of the homes and sell some of the lots over the winter. Under inspections and actions associated with site plans, I don't have any of those.
Can I go back to Lions real quick?
Sure.
Knowing that you generally, the middle of November is when most asphalt plants close down and everything,
Right.
are there provisions to allow, for us to allow lot releases without having that being a paid service?
No.
No. All right.
I mean, I suppose you could, but I wouldn't recommend it. You want to be able to get access to the lots without ripping up the road. So having a base course is important, and make sure all the drainage is in and that kind of thing. All the utilities to service the lot.
No, I agree. It's just,
Yeah.
I was just thinking from the developer's standpoint, because he misses this deadline, if he, bad weather or whatever, if he has to wait until April to look for lot releases, that's a long time.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's standard practice to require the base course.
Yep, I agree. All right, thank you.
Okay. On the planner's plate, the ADA self-evaluation plan is moving forward. We have a Zoom meeting scheduled for November 30th to hear a report from the consultants working on that plan. After that, there'll be a submission of the report, and then another public meeting to talk about the recommendations in that plan. So that's moving along well. I had sent out a copy of the complete street scope of work that Richard had requested at the last meeting. We are still in the process of signing the contract between the town and Mass DOT. I'm hoping, we signed it on our end, it's waiting approval on their end, so hopefully that will get underway shortly.
Bill, if I may, excuse me, Mr. Chairman, there is, that was the attachment A, I think, that you provided most recently on Complete Streets. In that document, it references town staff, I think is the term that's used. Was that include members of the planning board? I mean, what is our opportunity for input or involvement there?
Well, as you know, in the policy, we've designated the planning board as the Complete Streets Committee.
That's my point exactly. We are kind of in the front ranks as far as that's concerned, and I didn't know whether town staff included us or excluded us.
No, staff does not include volunteer board members. They're employees of the town.
Employees of the town.
Yes.
We have opportunity for involvement in this at some level. I didn't see where, in that attachment at least, where there was an avenue for us to be in that consideration.
Yeah, the scope calls for a kickoff meeting.
Right.
So that would be with the planning board.
With the planning board?
Yes,
Okay.
and then
So
there'd
that
be
would be
another.
part of our agenda then for that evening?
And then there'd be various reports that I would make to you as certain tasks are completed. I would present those to you, so you'd have the ability to comment on the progress as it goes forward. And then towards the end, there would be another presentation to the planning board of the preliminary recommendations, which you then have a chance to tweak and approve before it becomes finalized.
Thank you.
The other piece for the planner's plate is in regards to the Stevens Mill. Mass Development is interested in providing financial assistance for energy improvements. They have a program called PACE, which can fund some innovative energy conservation measures, and the applicant has expressed an interest in that program, so I will be following up. I don't really know specifically what that is, but it sounds like it's a good opportunity for the developer to get some financial assistance for the energy improvements, which obviously will be a major part of the project.
Hey, Bill, since you mentioned Stevens Linen Mill, and you brought up a good point this evening about the Ethan Allen property, I'm wondering, wouldn't some sort of access to the river back there at the Stevens Mill complex for putting in kayaks or, some such thing like that, wouldn't that be, something great for the town?
I think it would be, and in fact, we have a plan that calls for that at that site.
Okay.
The developer hasn't committed to anything in that regard, but
Yeah,
I think.
I just want to make sure I brought it up so that when we get down to it, we can start talking to them about
Mhm.
something like that, because I think that's a really good location for it.
That's a great idea.
I think
As
it
you
was
know, there's a-
requested, right?
Excuse me?
Wasn't it requested or brought up already?
I mentioned it to them. I
Yeah.
never got an answer whether they would commit to that. But there is, as you know, a community impact fee associated with this establishment. And I think that would be a source of funding to build those kinds of facilities. But of course, it would require their permission to access that on their property.
A lot of people in town, they like their bike paths, they like their, they like that recreation.
Mhm.
A lot of them have to go out of town to get that kind of access to the river now. So,
Mhm.
definitely something. Heck, you could put your kayak in at Stevens Mill and you could go downstream and take it out at Ethan Allen or.
Mhm. Yeah, I think it would be great.
Buy your own.
Up there, buy your marijuana, keep going.
It'll make going upriver a lot easier.
River goes into Connecticut though, so
No.
breaking that law.
That's right. There'll be a anti-submarine net across the river as you enter Connecticut.
Under other business, set next meeting date. I sent to you a proposed 2021 meeting schedule, which is in tab E of your binder. So this represents the second and fourth Wednesdays of the month for calendar year 2021, with additional meetings around town meeting, the annual in the spring and the fall town meeting, where the planning board typically meets if there are any zoning articles that require your action.
So those are the meeting dates, just so you have it, so that you'll know when we're meeting for next year. Well, some of us will be voted out by the time some of these dates get here. There is, as you know, as part of COVID-19, the town administrator has made some changes to staffing protocols in the town hall. So what's happening is we have been split into two groups. Michelle and I are in group 2 and with a couple of other people, and then the other people are in group 1. And the point is to avoid mixing groups so that each group will come in on separate days. So that if one group has a contamination of one of its members, it doesn't affect the other groups, so the other group would continue to go forward even though that first group might be affected and would have to stay out of town hall. So the point is to try to be as safe as possible. So there's a schedule which rotates from one week to the next. So one week, for example, I would be in on Monday and Tuesday, and then the next week I would be in on Thursday and Friday. And that will continue to rotate for the foreseeable future. And we are setting up a kiosk here in the town hall for residents of the town who, if they want to drop off applications or request information, they can come to the kiosk and someone from town hall will go down and assist them as possible. I will have one of the assistants here in the town hall who will be available the days that I'm not in to take phone calls and provide information, and I will be in contact with them if I'm not working that day. That doesn't really affect the planning board that much, except that if you wanted to come in and meet with me for some reason, we have to set up an appointment on one of the days that I'm in. So the drop-off or the drop-in, I guess, anytime you felt like it is kind of going to be suspended for a while until this issue breaks over. The other piece that I do is talk to the town administrator on December 9th. But that's the way it looks. The DMA. We will be going to remote. And I don't know how long here in the state and we get back over the summer. Be aware of.
Whenever we went through those, July, whatever it happened to be. We can discuss this at next meeting. Okay. Audit, we'll talk next.
Zoom, I think this something in the way of a curfew. I guess the Zoom would not be curfewed.
Not if you're at home.
No. That's scary.
The other thing, Dan, is we have a couple of invoices. Those are in tab F. So we'd like your approval of those invoices. One is for Graves Engineering for Lyons Estates for $1,127.25. The second one is also for Graves for Pierpont Estates in the amount of $768.70. And the third and final is for some print cartridges for my printer in the amount of $103.99.
So 768.70,
Yep.
1,219.95, and 103.99?
1,127.25.
There's three of them.
Right, those are
We got,
combined.
11, 25, 27, 25, you need that one?
So 103.99, 1,127.25,
Mhm.
and 768.70?
Correct.
All right.
We all need to sign. Okay, we need 2 copies, Mr. Chairman?
We need 2 or just 1? Just 1, right?
Yes.
Just 1? Oh, good.
Any comments from the planning board? Any comments from the audience?
Well, just, Mr. Chairman, if I would, very nice to see Mr. Diglio here. I probably mispronounced your name, I apologize for that. That's fine. Good to see you with us this evening, and welcome to Mr. Horn, our newest old member, so to speak. Glad to have you, and as the chairman had mentioned earlier, your experience, I'm sure, will serve us and the town well. I have been participating in Central Mass Regional Planning. This has all been remote, but there have been 3 things that I've been part of, or at least listened to. One involved public health. One involved the transportation climate initiative. And if I get the sense of that, we'll all be driving Teslas before too much longer. And the last one was the monthly or quarterly meeting. And it sounded somewhat like an extension of the Democratic presidential primary thing, I thought, in terms of the connection that they might. No, thank you.
Send,
Oh, yes.
on their.
Yeah, thank you for reminding. Anything else?
Listed as Mr. Not need the 4th, 5th.
Those are them.
How about in a?
Second.
And right.
You can ask your last name.